Hello everyone and welcome once again to the R&B Show. My name is Bruce Colon, and for today's video I'd like to follow up on the last one regarding Paul McCartney's set list. I did have a few additional thoughts that I wanted to share, especially based off of the feedback I received from many of you who took the time to watch my last video. I want to thank all of you who did so, especially those of you who took the time to share comments and your thoughts on the matter, those of you who liked the video, and especially to all the new subscribers to the channel. I really appreciate you. Welcome aboard. So for today's video, we're going to cover what I refer to as Paul McCartney's touring dilemma, which is a very enviable position to be in as one of the world's most popular entertainers, which is how do you tailor your performances to such a wide, passionate, and loyal fan base, especially one that covers multiple decades. But before getting into that, I do want to touch upon a few things and backtrack a little bit, because Paul McCartney obviously is one of the world's most popular entertainers, no question about it, but he does have a bold experimental side that has shown up throughout his entire career, and I think that's a side that a lot of us who are hardcores would like to see showcased just as much as the big hits. Paul definitely took a lot of big chances in the 70s as he was trying to find his footing again. Right out the gate, 1970, a lot of people, I'm sure fans, were expecting Abbey Road 2, this sort of big, grand, bold statement for Paul's first solo release. What does he do? Very smartly in retrospect, he drops this homespun, lo-fi, self-made album called McCartney, in which he played all the instruments, and you can see him tinkering about and trying to find his footing. As a follow-up to that, he creates this wild pop savant masterpiece that was widely misunderstood at the time, album called Ram. That album has a lot of loony moments, a lot of melodic genius, little hints of, Brian Wilson's touches and production work. But again, widely misunderstood, and I think a lot of the savagery from critics in those early years was based off of also the perception of McCartney's role in the breakup of the Beatles, which was also widely misinformed, unfortunately. But now McCartney and Ram are seen in a much higher light, particularly Ram, which is seen as one of his all-time masterpieces, if not his greatest solo work of all time. Similarly, his work with Wings was never purely pop. There was always a looseness and an experimental side, a lot of whimsy, as far as how much of that was due to herbal recreation is subject to debate. But again, took a lot of chances. He tours this new unit early 1973 in a rented van and hitting up universities on the fly just to get them their live wings, so to speak, get a live experience and get them, ready for obviously a much grander stage down the line, which does culminate in the 76 tour, which no doubt was an artistic triumph for Paul, a validation of all the work that he was doing throughout the early 70s to get back onto that kind of A-list of rock stars again, and it was well earned. Particularly when you consider that the 76 tour was built on an entirely fresh body of work, aside from the world beloved Beatles catalog. Again, very bold, very ballsy on his part. Really only played 5 Beatles songs in that entire tour. And you got to think, this was his first time revisiting the States in about 10 years. So again, his peak as a live performer, I think, his voice never sounded better, his bass playing. So again, a triumph for Paul, and well earned. Wings tour again in 1979. I think it was intended originally to be more of a world tour. Starts in the UK. When it moves to Japan, obviously the whole tour is cut short due to the infamous pot bust. And I think by that point, Paul and Linda felt like they'd proven their point. They'd done it. They'd proven that there was life after the Beatles. And so I think a lot of the shine was off anyway. It can be argued that subconsciously maybe Paul sabotaged that tour. Who knows? Even he doesn't know for sure, but he has alluded to that. But in light of that, Paul goes into this long period of kind of studio perfectionism and his kind of sterility with a lot of these early 80s albums. He has kind of the bust of the whole Give My Regards to Broad Street project. And in light of that, there's obviously rebuilding that needs to be done after that as well. So he goes back on the road in 89-90 in support of a very strong album called Flowers in the Dirt. The 89-90 tour was the first time I personally had a chance to see him. And again, it was another triumph. You know, it had been a long time since the audience has seen him, and everyone welcomed him back with open arms. It was a great, great tour. He tours again in 93 in support of Off the Ground. And then it's another long break for a while, in the middle of which, unfortunately, we lost Linda McCartney, you know, Paul's anchor. I think it was around 98. And then it really took until 2002 with his new live unit that continues to be the players that he utilizes today to get back on the road. And again, once again, welcome with open arms, which is a testament to his popularity. Another successful tour, and he's pretty much toured consistently since then. But that leads to, again, Paul's touring dilemma. And it pretty much comes from the same reason that most of us love him to begin with, which is the fact that he's always been very considerate of a mass audience. He's not someone like a Dylan or a Neil Young, kind of contrarian, do stuff to please themselves first and foremost. Paul has always been about pleasing, you know, the kind of the widest number of his audience as possible. So really, I wanted to kind of follow up on my last video and just make clear that in theory, there really isn't anything wrong necessarily with his current set list. Well, for you aside, especially for those who are seeing him for the first time. The problem is for those of us who have seen him multiple times and are hardcore fans and are so familiar with the set list and are aware of this other body of work that, you know, deserves, I think, to be showcased as well. Again, a live stadium setting is a tricky place to do that. So I think a lot of us are aware of that, but it doesn't stop us from, you know, playing kind of armchair analyst. Obviously, the other dilemma in more recent years is the singing voice. And then the reality is that there's just no way that, you know, a near 80-year-old is going to be able to replicate the sound of a 20-something or a 30-something. You know, if you think about it, the crux of the songs that he's doing now, the majority of them, they're really, you know, songs that were recorded when he was in his 20s and 30s and operating in what I refer to as God mode, essentially, you know, pretty much peerless as a singer. But I guess the other dilemma too is the unwillingness to lower the keys, which normally I'm not a fan of, I don't enjoy, but in this case it might be the lesser of evils. You know, the other part of the dilemma is that the Beatles' popularity continues. You know, it's never waned. If anything, you know, it just kind of continues to grow, you know, the legend. And so does the demand for Paul as a live performer and his will to do so. And, you know, I've said it before, Paul has earned the right for what he's given us to go out on whatever terms, end his career on whatever terms he wants to do so. Yes, you know, the cost is ridiculous, especially in this case. It excludes a lot of people that, especially I think a younger audience that would want to see him, especially in light of maybe discovering him in the recent Get Back documentary. But it is what it is, you know. The only solution I can think of to this, again, in an ideal world, would be to, you know, have Paul do, again, the occasional club show. That would be something I would love to see, especially, you know, something similar to when he revisited the Cavern, you know, behind the Run Double Run album. Be great to see him do something similar, but showcase, again, a lot of these other songs in his catalog that, you know, he finds no place for in his stadium show. You know, so many of those songs really deserve to be heard by more people. But again, you know, it's one of those things that, you know, for various reasons, some of which we'll never know, Paul is resistant to. Another thing that I think would be really cool to hear would be an updated Unplugged show where he showcases a lot of these acoustic tracks that are, again, buried in each of these albums that he's done since 1970. I'd love to see that. Again, that's me playing, you know, armchair analyst. But again, so many great songs that so many people will never hear. So it's kind of a shame, you know. But honestly, you know, when all of us discuss this, you know, I don't think the criticism is coming from a mean-spirited place. It's all out of love. It's all out of passion. It's all out of fandom. And I think it's fun to, fantasize and imagine, but I think for a lot of us fanboys and fangirls, we just may have to let it be, to quote the great man himself. But we'll see. Again, I don't think this will be Paul's last tour. If enough people, I think, speak up, maybe, who knows, get at least a few different songs into the mix. And I think that would be, a small win for us. Anyway, I want to thank everyone for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like, again, subscribe, and we'll be seeing you again pretty soon. For my next video, we're going to discuss the pros and cons of the latter-day era of Pink Floyd. So stay tuned for that one. And again, thank you all for watching. Stay well, stay safe, and till next time. Bye.